The final 2 weeks of the season decisions, waiver wire picks, pitcher preview, and Ruvain's injury report. Next on Beat the Shift. Welcome to another episode of the Beat the Shift podcast. I am your host, Ariel Cohen, and with me as always, Ruvain Guy. How are you, Ruvain?
I'm doing great. How are you doing today?
Pretty good. Getting geared up for the last 2 weeks of the fantasy season and getting down to the stretch. It's the dog days of summer as summer ends in, wow, I can't believe summer is over in just about 3-4 days. How was your summer this year?
It went by very quickly. Yes, this marathon has now turned into a 2-week sprint here as we finish out the season.
Yeah, and the key here is, anything goes. Like, don't be afraid to drop somebody who just isn't cutting it. Even if you picked him in the 6th round of a draft, if he's not cutting it right now and he doesn't help you in your categories, just throw him away. I mean, there's no time to fix it. And we're talking redraft leagues, of course.
And if you're dropping the guy, I mean, if you drop anybody this week, if anyone picks him up, they only have 1 week left of this player. So it's not like you're going to be getting a whole bunch out of this player anyway. So you're not going to lose out that much, and let them spend their rest of their fab on the guy. You don't need him anyway, so who cares?
Right. And that last week, of course, is always iffy because people sit. Pitchers sometimes, end up shutting him down, don't play. So dropping a guy this week is really not the biggest thing about the fear of dropping players is, is somebody going to pick him up? And, of course, we have the rule that, should you drop a player, well, if they're going to pick him up, if somebody else is going to pick him up, then maybe you shouldn't drop him. You don't really have that fear here. So just get the players you need for your roster.
Correct.
And, the other discussion before we get into our specific players is it matters right now the number of games teams are playing. I mean, I'm looking at the schedule for next week. The Red Sox and Mets are only playing 5 games apiece. Whereas, for example, the White Sox are playing 8 games this coming week, and the Indians with 2 doubleheaders, they've got 9 games. How does that factor into your decision to play players, to pick up players? How does that come about for you, Ruvain?
Well, it's a matter of playing time, and if there are only 5 games, and let's say you have Christian Vazquez on your team, and you want to know what to do with him, you have 5 games with him. Is he going to play all 5 games? Probably. They're in a playoff race, so he's going to play, so you're going to get a lot out of him still, probably. But if you can find another catcher that may play 6 games or 7 games, not likely, but it's possible. So you can pick him up and fill in for those stats if you really need to, and you can drop Vazquez and not have to worry too much about it. But then you may want to think on the flip side of it. Would you really want to drop Christian Vazquez? Is there someone really out there that's going to be that much better for those 5 games? Probably not. So you have to make a decision as to who you think will be the best value for your team. Don't go by the name, go by the stats. Look at the numbers, don't look at the name. That's what you have to do down the stretch now.
Yeah, and whether a team is still in it for the playoffs matters. And we have a league that we're doing, and the question is, should we drop Christian Vazquez, who has only 5 games this week, for another catcher who might have 7 games? Maybe you could pick up 2 more games. But the thing is, the Red Sox, they're right in the hunt. They're facing the Yankees and the Blue Jays. They're competing against them for the last wild card spot. Vazquez is going to play probably almost every game, at least 4 out of 5, if not 5. You might not actually get an advantage by picking up another second catcher to there. So it's not just the number of games, it's also the quality of games and if the teams are still in it or not.
But let's say you have someone like Xander Bogaerts, who also plays 5 games for the Red Sox. And you also have a player like Kiner-Falefa, who plays a bunch of games also. It's not the same quality of player, but he's going to play more. Kiner-Falefa has 7 games, and Bogaerts only has 5. So it's a matter of what you think you're going to get out of him. Do you want to risk it and sit Bogaerts to play Kiner-Falefa because you want to get those extra stolen bases out of it? If you really think that's going to work, then fine. But otherwise, I think it's just stick with the proven commodity, even if it means missing a game or 2.
Yeah, and of course you mentioned we were talking earlier before recording. We have that decision to make in a league where we have Bogaerts versus Kiner-Falefa. We could gain a point in stolen bases, so maybe Kiner-Falefa helps. We can gain a point in batting average. Kiner-Falefa has been great. Of course, Bogart's in that wonderful lineup, so he'll score a lot of runs, which we need also. So you need to make the assessment of what categories you need and how valuable players. I mean, Bogarts to me is definitely up there. He's a third round player. Kind of fluff is nowhere near then. So, you're talking about a very, very big disparity in value. But if something is somewhat close, those extra 2 games, 3 games can make all the difference.
And same goes for the waiver wire. If you see a player out there that you really want, it's only 5 games, think twice about it. Maybe look for the guy with 7 games instead of 5 games.
Yep. All right, on to our waiver wire. Who do you got for this week to pick up?
Well, I got a couple players. First of all, we'll start in Miami with Brian De La Cruz. He's playing outfield for the Marlins. He's playing every day. In the last week, he's batting .364, 2 homers and 6 RBIs. And since August 10th, he's raised his batting average from .250 to .336. That's pretty good. He's only 11% owned in CBS, and if you need an outfield fill-in, let's say you have a Joe Adell who just went on the IL and he's done for the year, Brian De La Cruz is a great fill-in. Another guy, if you need a fill-in for the infield, this guy plays first, second, and third, and that's Tommy La Stella. He's playing every day, and for the last week, batting .292, 2 homers, 7 RBIs, and 5 runs scored. That's filling up the stat sheet for the last couple weeks of the season. That's very important. He's only 22% owned in CBS, so he's available in most leagues. Another guy to watch is Gavin Lux. He's not really playing second base. He's more playing left field. The last 3 games, he's actually played in left field because Chris Taylor's been out and A.J. Pollock's still on the IL. And in the last couple of games, Gavin Lux is batting .412. No homers, so you haven't seen that power yet. But Gavin Lux, if he's batting .412, that power will come. And if he's available in your league, grab him now. Another couple of pitchers you may want to mention, you want to take a look at actually, is Rowan Wick. He's had 4 saves for the Cubs since August 31st. He's only 12% owned in CBS, and if you need a closer at the last second, he's a guy to pick up. And another guy is Chris Stratton. The former San Francisco starter has 3 saves over the past 10 days for the Pirates, and with David Bednar on the IL and only being 6% owned, Chris Stratton is, he's a great pickup.
Yeah, I was going to mention Chris Stratton as well. Of course, I mentioned Rowan Wick last week, so those are definitely 2 options for closers if you need it. I picked him up in a couple leagues where that extra save could help. 3 saves is 2 points in the standings. Chris Stratton, why not? Just try. And he's been great. In the last month, he's had a 2.45 ERA, 1.94 WHIP, a .68 WHIP. So that's not gonna hurt your ratios there. So give it a shot. I'll mention a couple of other hitters. Last week I mentioned Odubel Herrera and Lamonte Wade. They're still out there, widely available, and they got some good schedules coming up. I would very much consider picking them up if they are still available in your league as well. I'll also mention Austin Hayes. He's a little bit less. He's a little bit more owned, 43% owned. He's slashing .253, 300, .463 with 20 homers on the year since August 1st. 10 homers, .280 average, 28 RBIs. He's batting 3rd, 4th, or 5th every day. This week he has a great schedule, 3 games at Philly, 4 games at home against Texas. Austin Hayes should be rostered. And watch for him for next year also. He's a guy I think you should keep an eye on. How about DJ Peters in Texas? 9 homers over the last 30 days. And, it hasn't been just like a 1 week where he hit 4 or 5 homers. He's actually been spreading it out. He's been consistent with the power. 200 batting average with pop. Basically, he's the Joey Gallo replacement. If power is what you need, he is playing the Yankees away and Baltimore away, so it's another good week to play Peters. How about Willie Calhoun, same team? He's widely available. He's only 15% owned. He has 30 home run power legit. These are a couple of guys that if you need power, look to Peters and Calhoun for the second to last week in the season.
The only thing about DJ Peters is that his batting average may kill you. You mentioned him being like Joey Gallo. He's batting .199 for the season. So if your batting average can take a little bit of a hit and you need that power, then it's worth it. But otherwise, you have to be very careful with that.
Yeah, again, as anything, you have to have the player that fits your roster construction. If batting average is tight, even if you need homers, it's not going to help you to pick up DJ Peters. You might have to look elsewhere. It all depends on the categories. If there's no chance you can gain or lose points in batting average, he fits. So you got to do that risk assessment and the category assessment right up to the last week of the season. How about pitcher preview? Who are a couple of 2-star pitchers, 1-start matchup? Who are you picking up this week?
Well, I don't really love the two-star pitchers that are out there. There's nothing really that stands out. The only one that really catches my eye a little bit is Eric Fetty. We mentioned him before. He's two-start this week. He'll get you strikeouts. He's had 17 strikeouts in his last 14 innings. He's at Miami and at Cincinnati. He's only 12% owned in CBS. So if you're really desperate for strikeouts, he may be a guy to look at. But a guy who I'm looking at, and he's actually 45% owned in CBS, and if he's still available, you got to grab him, and that's Adrian Hauser. Since returning from the IL on August 22nd, he's lowered his ERA from 3.55 to 3.25, and he's got 18 strikeouts in the last 23 innings with 2 wins. He's one start next week, but he lines up to be 2 start for the last week of the season. So if you're still in it and your season runs the whole season and you don't end your playoffs the week before the season, last week of the season, Adrian Hauser is the guy to have.
Just a caution about the two-star pitchers, the future two-star pitchers. You never know that the last start of the season could either be short or could be canceled totally. I'd say it's a 50-50 gamble, and if it's younger pitchers in general, I'm talking generally speaking, I'd err on the side of they're probably not going to make that last start. So just caution about the future 2 start is my advice here, that you may think, oh, wow, you're going to get 2 starts next week, and it may turn into a pumpkin.
I agree, and also it doesn't matter if they're a playoff team or not, because if your pitcher is on a playoff team and they're not doing well, they're going to be pulled real early also. So you have to think about that as well.
Right. I'll give a couple of pitchers. Tony Gonsolin, 56% owned, but if you're in a league with a short bench or limited or no IL slots, it's very possible that somebody in your league has dropped him. This week he has 2 starts at Colorado, at Arizona. He's being ramped up. He had a 3-inning start and he had a 5-inning start against Arizona, which he pitched very well in both starts. Maybe he'll go 5, maybe 6, but those are great starts. I mean, you can get 10, 11 innings out of him this week. He'll give you strikeouts. He'll give you good ratios. Think about Tony Gonsolin. Matching up against him in one of the starts, John Gray. I know he's pitching Colorado 2 games. I know he's playing the Dodgers and Giants. This is not a play for a league where you are tight on the ERA. I would not gamble having John Gray at home 2 starts against the 2 best teams in baseball. But if you need strikeouts and the ERA, you have some kind of buffer, there's no better start that you're going to have than John Gray. He's going to rack up 15, 16 strikeouts possibly this week. You can't say no to that. He's not that widely owned, but if he is, consider him. Dallas Keuchel, oh my God, he's been brutal lately. He had a stretch of 4 straight games with 5 or more runs being given up, actually usually 6 or 7. He had a nice, decent 2-run outing against the Angels last week. But, he needs to get back into playoff form, and his matchups this week at Detroit, at Cleveland, and then he faces Detroit next week. Might be a play. So just consider him if there is room on your team. I'll throw in 2 other guys just to look at. Alec Mills, this is not a great pick, but he is 2 start, so if you need it, he's 22% owned, so he's probably available. He's been up and down this year. He sometimes has a good start, sometimes has bad starts, but if the wins are what you need, I think there's a good shot that he'll get 1 win. He's playing Minnesota and St. Louis at home. He's not a big strikeout pitcher, not great with the whip, but if you need a win, maybe give it a shot. The last guy I'll mention, Jordan Lyles, 1 start at Baltimore, 10% owned. He's been very streaky this year. He's had stretches of unbelievable pitching and then stretches of god-awful pitching. The last 2 starts, 7 innings, 1 run or less. So I think he's in the groove, and he's facing a poor Baltimore team. That's a great start. I would consider, even just for that 1 start, to pick him up.
And if you're considering, if you're considering Alec Mills, and you have to put John Lester into that conversation too. He's only 24% owned. He's playing at Milwaukee and pitching against Alec Mills. And in his last 3 starts, John Lester has a 2.45 ERA with 18 innings and 11 strikeouts. So that's someone to consider if you want to maybe get some wins. Because remember, St. Louis is still in the race, and they're going to try to push it as much as they can.
I like that pick. And, John Lester, and again, statistics won't tell you this, but I've in the last couple of years, he's always been very strong at the end of the year. I picked him up the last week of the season in Tout Wars, and he got a win, and he helped me out last year. Somehow he turns it on in the end of the year. These veteran pitchers know how to. Okay, it's the last bit of the season. I can throw everything I got. I don't got to waste anything in the tank. I don't have to save anything in the tank, that is. So I like that start by Lester.
Is it worth it? Is it worth it to try to go after both Alec Mills and John Lester so they can pitch against each other? What's your opinion on that?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. Obviously, if you pick two pitchers in any day that are facing each other, obviously you increase your chances for a win because all you need is one guy to do well. The worst of the best, of course, is where it's 1-0 going into the fifth inning for one guy, and 1-0 going into the ninth inning for both. The worst is when they all blow up and nobody even has a win. It's very hard to make the calculus to actually avoid or make it. I don't really know, to be honest, what the statistics are in there. I would say, though, if you need a win, then it does maximize your chances. So if wins are a thing, stacking is probably a good idea, even if it's against each other. But in terms of ratios or anything else, it's really probably doesn't matter at all. Do you have an opinion on that?
Yeah, I don't love when they pitch against each other because I don't know really to know who to root for. I'm rooting for both of them, and it doesn't. It's kind of a weird feeling. You want to do well, but you don't want to do too well. You want to get that one run and sneak it out. But if they're both available and you have roster spots for both of them, and they're both to start, I don't really care if they're pitching against each other though.
Yeah. Again, it's a small limiting factor to say that they stack and they play against each other. So do your best judgment to get the best player. Match up against each other regardless is, I guess, the advice. Injury report time. All right, only a couple more of these for the end of the season. Who do we got right now?
Okay, we'll start with some bad news. We'll start with Joe Adell, who's placed on the IL with a left abdominal strain. We don't know how bad it is, but we know that it's bad enough to keep him out for the rest of the year. Framber Valdez, who is dealing with a cut on his index finger. He was scratched from his last start this week, but he's supposed to start this coming Monday, so he's a possible to-start. So if you have him, use him. Wander Franco was placed on the IL with a right hamstring strain. It's not considered serious, and he is expected to return next week. Tyler Gilbert was placed on the IL with left elbow inflammation. We don't know how bad it is, but with 2 weeks left in the season, there's little reason why the Diamondbacks are going to try to push him to return, so don't really think about it. You can just drop him. I mentioned Chris Taylor also. He's missed the last week of games. So he hasn't been put on the IL. It's a great question as to whether he's going to come back. I think he will come back, and I think they'll probably come back sometime mid next week, only because the Dodgers want him to get him back into form when it comes time for the playoffs. Some updates on some players. Mike Trout has been basically ruled out for the rest of the year. If you have Jacob deGrom, he may give you maybe a couple of innings the rest of the year. I wouldn't put any money on it at this point. So the over-under for 1 inning, I think is going to be the under there. Johnny Cueto, he has done some catch, but has not done any mound work, so we don't know if he's going to be back this year. Chris Bassett, surprisingly enough, he's trending to return before the season ends. He may have only an abbreviated start, but he is trending. He already had a couple bullpen sessions done, so he looks good. And I also want to mention Jesus Aguilar, who is also going to be done for the year. So if you have him, you can drop him. You have confidence he's not coming back for the rest of the year.
Wow, that would be really fantastic if Bassett pitches again this year.
It's a great story. It's a really great story. I'm wondering if he'll wear a mask just like Kevin Pillar did when he came back while he pitches. That would be interesting.
Yeah, I would assume they'll wear something. But yeah, that was such a shame. He was pitching absolutely unbelievable. And
the one positive is this: it did cut down on his innings, which means that he's going to be fresh and they don't have to worry about him getting tired toward the end of the year. I know it's a horrible thing to say, but you know what? Sometimes things work out for strange reasons, and we don't know why.
Possible. All right. Well, that brings us to the end of the show. Before we go, why don't we just let everybody know where they can find your work, Ruvain, and where they can reach you.
You can follow me on Twitter at MLB Injury Guru, where I tweet out injury updates when they will be back, who's going to take their place, how long the player is going to be out for, whether they'll be out for the rest of the year or not. And you can catch my weekly Roto-Bowler article that comes out on Saturday or Sunday regarding FAB and injury updates.
And I'm Ariel Cohen. You can find my stuff over and on Fangraphs at Rotoballer and Sportsline. You can follow me on Twitter at ATCNY. And, of course, listen to me right here on the Beat the Shift podcast presented by Fangraphs. Now, Ruvain, I think that pretty exciting stuff. Next month, we are both going to be at First Pitch Arizona, presented by Baseball HQ, and our show is going to be done live.
Yes, that is going to be very interesting. We've never done a live show in front of a, as they say, studio audience, so it's going to be a little bit interesting.
Yeah, and there is still some room, I am told, at Baseball HQ. If you would like to attend, first of all, it's a great conference. Meet a lot of people, get great information ahead of the 2022 season. If you would like to attend, you can still do that. If you'd like a discount code, just message me privately. I'll hook you up with that. And you can come see us do the show live. So we're very much looking forward to that. We'll also have a bunch of episodes, recapping the season, what went right, what went wrong, strategy, what we can do better, what was just process risk, what was just something that we need to work on. We'll dissect the season. We've got a long time in the off season to do that, but we'll definitely get a bunch of those episodes there and the live one. So it's going to be an exciting next couple of months for us. Next week, I guess, is the final regular season one, right? But with just one more waiver wire period left.
Yep, and just remember, if you're in a 15-team league, only one team can win. So if you're in the other 14, you fall in the rest of the pack. Let's wait till next year.
Yeah. All right. Well, that'll do it for our show. Thanks again, Ruvain, and we will see you next time.
Thanks for listening to the Beat the Shift podcast presented by Fangraphs. Follow us on Twitter at beat_shift_pod.